Good morning, educators. Super excited this week. Nice and cool finally here where I live. But welcome to the Engineering and Manufacturer Educator Exchange, the Educator's Toolbox. Really excited about this week's episode, something that I really enjoyed doing, and the people that I got to work with on our advisory boards was super exciting and thrilling to learn and to continue on these relationships with these people even after I left education. But this week's episode 5, we're going to talk about some advisory board things, but also talk a little bit about kind of my process in the advisory boards, but something that I was trained in called Applied Creativity and Simplex. But I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the first part of that and why it was a big aha moment for me in understanding how we develop our program and continue to adopt our program. Adapt our program as we build. But so advisory boards, everybody has one. Everybody uses them. Some people more than others. Sometimes it's more of a checkbox that you got it done because you're trying to find people that are willing to come in and volunteer their time. At the same time, trying to find the right group of people that are coming in, not to yell and gripe about where education is, but also not coming in trying to change the entire thing that you're doing and not understanding the processes and things that have to happen. So it's very key to find the right group of people and to change your advisory board. I recommend that putting a term on it or talking with them about bringing, hey, you've been on this for a couple of years. Is there someone else that we can bring in to kind of transition you out and bringing in this new person from there? Isn't always the case. I had a couple advisory board members that were on my advisory board almost the entire 10 years I was in the design program there. But I think some of the things that we've got to think about as we leverage advisory boards and leverage their information, and what is your goal with them as it relates to your program. And I think we need to talk about flexibility, inefficiency, and adaptability. And that's what we want our programs to be as we are in these engineering and manufacturing clusters and careers, is that technology is ever changing. So how do we create a program? How do we get information from the industry on what is changing and how do we change that? But we want to be a flexible and adaptable, but at the same time, we don't want to be changing the curriculum every year or every 2 years or constantly adding in new things that just upend what you're doing. So there has to be some core key things that are stuck in place, but you got to make the curriculum so it's adaptable to the new things that are coming out. So as we talk about in machining, for a long time it was manual machining. We started adding in CNC. Now we've got CNC, we've got basic CNC, but we've got advanced CNC as well. Then we've got robotics that we can add in. We've got metrology with CMM arms. But how do we take our current curriculum, things that are really hard to change because of bureaucratic red tape within the college, within the state, but how do we make it so we can change it once and be able to interchange updates to technology? And we also want to be efficient with that, right? We want to make it so it's not a heavy lift and not anything that's really crazy. Occasionally, you have to make your own course that adapts to the new technology. But this kind of leads into how I structured my advisory boards. Of course, donuts and coffee, lunch, a dinner, that always helps attract more advisory board members. Uh, Quantity over quality is something that I consistently struggled with. I wanted to have enough advisory board members there to carry on conversations and get a diverse background of information. As we talked about in our last episode, or a couple episodes ago, episode 3, diversity generates creativity. Is I want to have a diverse group. I also was in a unique spot because I had to have architectural advisory board members. I'd have construction advisory board members. I'd have mechanical design, mechanical engineering advisory board members. I'd have civil engineering advisory board members. And to do all those separately was a real pain, and we didn't get enough. So we combined all those. So the other thing is really, what is your outcome? What are you trying to accomplish in these meetings? I held typically 2 a year, one in the fall, one in the spring. My one in the fall was really more of an update on Okay, we've had some meetings, we've had some changes, we've had things going on. We have the start of the semester. What has happened? Where are we falling short? Where are we succeeding? And where are some ideas that we can go forward thinking about the spring? Then my spring meeting was typically that ask that, hey, we've got this happening. We're getting in this new equipment. We heard you from the fall. We're going to purchase this item. We're going to add in this technology. How can you help? Where can you fit into this puzzle of us getting the students that'll eventually be working for you upskilled, get them ready for the technology that we're bringing in or the change that we've made? Oftentimes it was a simple ask of them donating something. Later on, we started asking them to donate some time and being able to come back and say, hey, we asked you to put in this new technology. We're going to give you some of our time and some of our expertise in either helping develop the curriculum, projects, or even speaking to the class. We kind of had this guest lecture series where if it was a topic that I didn't know well or another instructor knew well, we brought in the experts to talk about that topic at that time. That worked out fantastic. The other thing that we did is going through the simplex process and become certified through it. It's a cyclical cycle. You have a fuzzy situation at the beginning, a fuzzy thing that you're trying to solve. There's no clear right answer, and you're trying to get a diverse group of people together to figure out how to answer this. And so we used a lot of fact finding. That's one of the first big steps in this, is not only defining the fuzzy situation, but let's look at the facts. And a lot of times when we said fact finding, is everybody kind of thought that had to be in stone, it had to be 100% fact. What we end up finding out is there's a lot of perceptions and there's a lot of misunderstanding. So as we went through the process of fact finding, we diverged and we brainstormed and we brought out all these facts, but we didn't challenge them. There wasn't a, well, he said this, that's not true. We don't see this over there. As we didn't challenge it at that time. We really just wanted to get all the facts out on the table and see, where do we really stand? What do we assume? What do we perceive? And what is a real fact that we have? We know one of the things was developing diversity in our program. And when we said, hey, we think our program's pretty diverse, but when we went back and actually looked at the data, we found out it's not that diverse as we thought. And we can do better with that. The other thing that we did in this is fact finding, is we found out that there are a ton of softwares everybody wants us to teach. And that prepped me for a few things. So this fact finding was really great in really thinking about what was perceived, what was real, and coming up with then plans, questions, collaborations, projects, ideas out of that fact finding, and really would go into the next step, which is now kind of this solution and figuring out, how do we solve this fuzzy situation based on these facts that we have, and what are some outside the box thinking type ideas. But one of the first big things that I did with the fact finding is kind of this realization of the amount of software we're being asked to teach and the amount of software that students are being asked to know, but when they get a specific job, really only one software. So one day in our advisory board meeting in the morning, first thing they did, grab donuts, grab coffee. Then I had the big, sticky note pages. I had a couple of them on the whiteboard. And what I wanted them to do is they went around to go find their seat. Is up on there. I had the first one was, what softwares do you use in your company? And they would list them down. Next one was, what skills do you want your new hires to have? And then the last one is, what software should we be teaching? And what we first one and third one, what we found was, of course, they want us to teach the software that they're using. So we saw a correlation between that. That ended up being close to 50 different softwares between the multiple groups that we teach and the courses that we have. 50 softwares. That's hard. That's really hard. And I made that point, and when we kind of all had this step back and going, oh, well, we didn't really think we were asking for that, because everybody comes to me individually, typically say, hey, I need a student that can do this. I need a student that can do that. But when we look at it as a whole in an advisory board, we kind of step back and go, yeah, we you can't do that. You can't teach all those softwares. We're talking about CAD programs. We're talking about evaluation programs. We're talking about like Microsoft Office, talking about CAM, talking about architectural, construction, these type of things. Just can't teach them all. So what we looked at then is that middle page and said, you know what? These are the skills and abilities. And as an advisory board, if you trust me, I can get these skills and abilities to these students more so than I can get these 50 softwares to them. And we started having these discussions as an advisory board and understanding that my students coming out of my program may not have what you're looking for from a software side specifically, but I can guarantee, provided they've gone through all of the coursework, they've gone and listened to us, and done all the things that we've asked them to do or they can do or have the opportunity to do within our program, they will have these skills and abilities, and you'll have a much easier time onboarding them to the software they don't know than you would by us just trying to teach a little bit of every software and then really having to onboard and get them up to speed on the skills and abilities that you want. So we really made that shift in our program and started thinking about skills and abilities and application of those things, and then what software we're teaching. Coincidentally, we started using Fusion 360 as the backbone of our program, and then offshooting a couple of the kind of core softwares that are used out of there. But with that, I was able to get our students the skills and abilities, the workforce skills that they were asking for continuously. I was able to build those in and get those in by concentrating on those more than concentrating on how do I fit all of this software in my program. So that was a decision that we made. It was a decision that really helped our students, transformed our program, took it to an entire different level, and it started building excitement with that. And so with all that said, and the Educator's Toolbox today, I think is really thinking about how you're using the advisory board. Don't be afraid to use some type of process to get them active in the advisory board, to get them seeing what everybody's telling you individually, that there's a struggle here. There's something that I can't do. I don't have enough time, but how do we get that done? What's another way of looking at that? And so that was great. It was also great that with that advisory board, when we started doing that, we also had the HR people eventually started joining us. And we really wanted to talk about how they reshape their hiring process and what they're asking for from prospective employees. So this opened up kind of a Pandora's box of kind of cool ways of looking at how are students getting the skills and abilities, moving on to the next level, and then how is that company getting them up to speed with where they need to get them to be an effective employee. So that's been a thought that's been running through my head. Really enjoyed my time working with the advisory boards. Had fun using the simplex process with them. Happy to discuss more about that process and what that looks like. But yeah, really excited to continue this journey with you all. I'd really love to hear in the comments, what are you doing with your advisory board? Has it been successful? Has it not been successful? Let's hear just as much of the good things and the things that we have worked. Let's hear what hasn't worked. Meeting off site, meeting on site. I think sharing those pluses and minuses really help us shape that. And not every place will have the same advisory board and the same ability to do the same thing. So really encourage us to share and to showcase what we're doing. So again, really excited to continue this. Hard to believe it's episode 5 here of me just spewing my knowledge bank that I have, right, wrong, or indifferent. Just excited for that. And hopefully you can put it in your toolbox and use it at some point. But please join the conversation in the chat. Let me know what you think. Let us know how you're leveraging or not leveraging the advisory board. And let's continue to rock and roll